Hello and welcome to Adoption Pop. We're a podcast journalist,
a filmmaker,
and a cultural critic burst pop culture's favorite adoption tropes.
Because we're adopted.
Kristal, are you a prankster?
Come on. Do you know me? I am the prankster. Anything for a good laugh. This one April Fool's, I woke up in the middle of the night and I made this big poster board sign and pasted it to the back of Stuart's truck, and it said, "Honk at my husband, April Fools." And he had to get up early, like 4 a.m. or so, to go to the airport to go away for work. And he said that he was driving to the airport and everyone kept honking at him. And he was getting so mad, and people would drive up beside him and look at him and honk. And he's like, "What the heck?" And then he got out of the car and he went to the back and to just look, and it was he figured out what had been done. So yeah, I'll do anything for a prank or a laugh.
Okay, well that's a pretty good one, I would say. I'm not going to talk about my favorite prank, but I can tell you that I played it on someone in the early 1990s, and it involved a cache of New Kids on the Block posters. I am, however, going to lean hard into the 1990s. Adopted is the mockumentary film written, produced, and starring 1990s film star, comedian, Nepo baby, and MTV VJ, back when that was a thing, Pauly Shore. Shore, trailed by a small camera crew, travels to Africa to do what celebrities do on the continent. Adopt a baby, he tells us, like Madonna and Angelina Jolie. This film was independently produced, and contrary to many of the films we cover here on Adoption Pop, was virtually ignored by critics, nominated for no awards, and pretty universally disliked by most who saw it. Haley, what were your overall impressions of Adopted?
Okay, so I admit that when I first started watching it, I had a quick giggle right at the beginning when Pauly Shore says, "Well, who's going to take care of me when I'm old?" Good point. Maybe you should adopt a kid. And I enjoy a good mockumentary. I mean, this is not my favorite thing we've ever watched, but I think he makes some good critiques of celebrities adopting babies from abroad and the, hoops that he has to jump through and they didn't. So I don't know. How's he a Nepo baby? I don't really know much about Pauly Shore. I never liked him.
His dad was a comedian, and his mom actually opened, I think, and operated the Comedy Store in LA. So, yeah.
So he got early chances, and I see. I see. What did you guys think when you watched this?
I was confused. I was like, what am I watching? Who are these people? What is happening? Are these actors? Is everyone an actor? Was it scripted? There were so many questions.
Did you not realize it was a mockumentary?
I actually don't think I really understand what a mockumentary is.
Oh.
I thought a mockumentary is where the one character goes around and is in on it, or the crew is in on it, but then maybe some of the people that they come across are not in on it.
I think that is one style of mockumentary. That is one style of mockumentary for sure.
Okay.
I really enjoyed this movie. I did.
Of course you did. Please tell me why.
I did not going in expecting to enjoy it. And like you, Haley, I enjoy a good mockumentary. I really enjoy a good mockumentary. I didn't expect to enjoy it. Admittedly, I had very low expectations because it was totally independently produced by Pauly Shore also. And I mean, I grew up with Pauly Shore. Like, I was target market at the time when, he was on MTV. He was an acquired taste even then. It was very, for the time, like very kind of, I don't think we called it, it was surfer humor. I was going to say frat boy humor, but like surfer sort of humor. But again, like, I was at exactly the right age, I think, to find that kind of stuff funny. And so I did come in with a little bit of that nostalgia, but I wasn't sure how well like he had aged as a persona or an actor or any of those kind of things. And I thought it was really funny. Like, I thought it was really great. I thought and we'll talk more in detail about it, but the entire thing is absurd. I mean, the whole entire movie is so absurd, and I thought how perfect for essentially an adoption satire. And an adoption satire should be totally absurd, and this did not disappoint. So I enjoyed it.
Absurd is the right word. And to your comment, Kristal, I had to look up and make sure that the kids he was interacting with were actors, because otherwise I felt super uncomfortable viewing. So I did pause it to be like, I just need to know. And they were actors. So cast to play. Yes. So you can feel like if that was an uneasy feeling you had, you can unhook that from this show.
Thank you. I needed to be released from that because it was weirding me out a little bit. And then I went into the comment section to see like what other people were thinking or feeling about it. And I wasn't off, but it was, absolutely ridiculous. And might I just say that comedy is an art form, and I believe it takes a lot of intelligence to be a good comic. And so for even his little short, ridiculous one-liners, I mean, that I could appreciate his talent and his abilities.
Yeah, I think one thing that you're both hitting on that I really appreciated, I did the same thing that you did, Haley, which is I did do a little bit of research to be like, these are actors, right? Like, I assumed they were all actors, but I needed to make sure. In fact, every single person in this film was an actor, all of them, including the adults. And so ethically, that made me feel much better about what I was watching, that everyone was in on it. It wasn't all completely scripted, though. This was written in a hotel room very quickly. Pauly Shore was on comedy tour in South Africa, and he said, hey, if I'm going to go all the way to Africa, like, I should do something besides stand up while I'm there. Storyboarded the whole thing in his hotel room, flew in crew, contacted local talent agencies, and did this kind of very, very quickly, which meant that while some of it was scripted, some of it was not scripted. And I point that out because, as the three of us all kind of said, there was discomfort watching this. It was really uncomfortable. And I think one of the reasons I like that is because I don't think we're used to, as viewers, feeling uncomfortable watching adoption stories. I mean, maybe we're uncomfortable watching adoption stories because we see through them. But I think for the average viewer, they feel nothing but joy when they watch adoption stories. Or sometimes with birth mother stories, they might feel heartbreak, but they feel these very clear emotions. Like, this is what I'm supposed to feel, so I feel it. Whereas this was, well, it's an adoption story. He's saving kids from Africa. We should feel good about this, right? And it's just so cringy. Like, it's really, really cringy. And I loved that.
Like, he's just running around picking up random babies. And I'm like, I want to do that in real life. Like, I want to just pick up random cute small children and give them a snuggle. But I know that that's not appropriate. And he did not.
when he's doing that, he says, the problem is all these kids have parents and they don't want to come back with me. And like, we talked about that statistic, the orphan statistics, which we see show up at the very end. I know we're going to talk about that later, where it's like orphan is used as to define a child with one deceased parent and one alive parent. Like, that's not an orphan.
Right.
Anyway.
He also says, in talking to people, he says, I love little black children. So as we said, he's in Africa. He's in Africa, and he very clearly tells pretty much everyone he meets that he's here to adopt a baby. Just like Madonna and Angelina Jolie. This, of course, is on the heels of both Madonna and Angelina Jolie adopting children from Africa. And after he decides he's going to do this, and as you said, Haley, he's unable to find a baby on a child on the street whose parents will let him take them back to America. He then goes to an agency, and he speaks to the head of the agency, who is a little suspicious of this dude who's like a single guy, no wife, but like wants a kid. And the agency says, I'm going to let you take 3 kids in 3 days to like, he doesn't say this, but like essentially test the merchandise, right? Like he's taking these kids for a test drive.
Oh my God.
I want to know, so I know people can go internationally, and this has been a practice, right? Where you go into an orphanage and you do meet the kids. And I'm laughing because it is so absurd. It's like, which one would you like? Why not have a full day with one and, have a trial period?
As a side note, Haley, on one of your other shows, you and I talked about this, that I was in China. And I was there running a marathon. And the whole purpose of the trip was running this marathon. That's what it was. And we were there for 2 weeks, but we did a bunch of touristy things while we were there as well. This was an a US-based tour group. And one of the activities we did was go to an orphanage and see the kids.
Why?
Did they give tips on like how to pick a fave? Like,
it was weird. It was weird. And like, who doesn't like, to your point, Kristal, who doesn't like little children? Like,
it's like visiting puppies at the shelter.
100%.
Like, which one's cutest?
100%.
Which one wants to play with you?
Totally. Like, I wasn't thinking about adoption before, but look at all these cute little kids. Like, who doesn't want a cute little Chinese kid? Like, it was wild. It was wild. It was a wild thing to have on an itinerary that's not like, I didn't pick it. I didn't choose this is what I want to do on Thursday from 2 to 4. It's just like, this is what we're doing.
Okay, but if you were filming a mockumentary, you would then strap the child to your back and take it on the run with you.
Maybe. I would find one that wanted to run with me.
But
right?
So that's so absurd that you would get to go in there, just like Pauly does in this. There is he has one meeting with this director that is very brief. He
leaves his passport.
Oh my God.
So he can't,
as collateral.
As collateral.
I'm just saying, any stranger, random person can just go in and interact with these children in the scenario you're talking about, where it's a stop on a tourist itinerary.
We were there for 2 hours.
Oh my God.
But can we just talk about how he went to Oprah's all-girls school first to see if he could get a smart one so that they could run his company? And he's like, they didn't tell you I was coming? Like, it felt weird. It was like a grown man going to an all-girls school to, like, within the climate of what's been happening with certain things in America right now.
Well, this was, I mean, when he filmed this was on the heels of that school it coming out that there was sexual assault at that school, and there was a lot of scandals at the school. Oh yeah, like that was not an accident. I mean, it was very much part of his overall, this idea of a mockumentary and a satire, and pushing on uncomfortable things in a comedic way. So that had happened. It had come out already when he goes there and says, will you let me in? I want a smart one.
He nailed it. He nailed it, because I did not know that at all. And like, those were the feelings I was having. Like, this is so wrong and inappropriate.
The first kid, so he's going to take 3 kids, right, on a test drive. And the first kid is Adwa, who of the 3 I was going to say of the 3 actors, I thought Adwa was the best, but actually all 3 of those kids, all 3 of those actors were just fantastic actors. But Adwa, a couple of things. First of all, Pauly's like always touching him. Like he's always touching the kids.
He's calling himself daddy and
son.
Oh, yeah, that's like, so gross.
From the get-go. But it's real, right? Like we see that. Like the touching of children, like of adopted children. We see it on the internet all the time, right? Like adoptive parents just like touching the kids in ways that if you looked in the child's face, it's really clear the kid is uncomfortable. It's really clear the kid is uncomfortable. And yeah.
Well, and again, on social media, there's clips of the social worker bringing in like a kid that's a little bit older, like a toddler or something, in usually Intercountry, to the newly adopting mom, and say, I'm picturing one in my head like, this is your mom, and the kid's just like, oh, it's so gross. It's so gross. So good point. I mean, he's really saying something here.
And there's an exchange with Adwa. Adwa says, why do you want me? And Pauly says, because you need to be wanted.
Yeah.
And then Pauly talks about wanting to Americanize him. Right? Which, that's the thing, right? That's the savior. That's the saviorism. That's not the words that get used, but that really is what the mentality is, which is, well, but you're going to come to America and you're going to wear Air Jordans and your life's going to be better because you're in America and it's better in America.
And Pauly's complaint is that he's already too Americanized. Like he can't participate in Americanizing him.
He also then raises, towards the end of his time with Adwa, he's sort of voicing, he's talking through like, is Adwa the kid or not? Like for me. And he talks about that with Adwa's food bills and the rehab bills for when Adwa gets older. He said it would be like adopting a roommate. Not to mention he's going to sleep with my girlfriends. I thought that was super funny. I thought it was funny because there is so many inappropriate assumptions wrapped up in those lines, right? Like on the one hand, it's this, well, I want to adopt someone. They're going to be like my roommate. They're going to be like my little friend, which I think we do hear that too especially with adoptive parents considering adoption of older children. They talk about, I want a travel buddy. Like that's what I hear, like on the internet. I want a travel buddy, like that kind of stuff. So this idea of adopting a buddy.
I've never heard that before. People are saying those words out loud.
I think I got that from an episode of Love is Blind or something, from Love is Blind or like one of those. No, for real.
Oh my good God.
Yeah. Oh, Love Island. I got that from Love Island. One of the guys on Love Island. Yeah, he's like, I want a travel buddy. Totally. And I've heard someone say that in real life too, by the way.
Well, speaking of women being a distraction, there's a hot girl and Pauly Shore can't help himself. Sorry, I just made hot chick. What do you call them? What does he call them? And he says, I'm here adopting a child. And her response, immediate, that's sweet. So we say, I'm adopted, and people say, I'm sorry. But to the hopeful adoptive parent, that's sweet.
He not only calls them hot chicks, he calls them babies. Babies. Because he's so much older and they're so much younger. And then,
so
like, the
gross.
camera zooms in on her big fake boobs in one of the scenes. I'm just like, what is happening here? This whole show, like, what is happening?
Well, we see it with both Adwa and with the second child, Sumila, who's also a boy, that in both cases, Pauly sort of leaves them to go chase women, which to me was this commentary on like the child as accessory, right? Like this, I'm going to adopt a child for whatever reason. I'm going to adopt a child, and yet, and because he's specifically poking fun at celebrities, he's specifically poking fun at celebrity adoptive parents. So these are people with a great deal of financial means. And this idea that you are going to take a child from another country, bring a child newly separated from their culture and family and community into your home, and then you're going to leave them because you got movies to make or red carpets to walk, or like it was just one more thing in your day. It was like, a news cycle, a publicity cycle, and now you've moved on again. And so, like, I really I loved those scenes of him just, in fact, he loses Sumila for like hours, like loses him because he's chasing a girl.
And then when he finds him, he's like, help me find my kid. My kid is gone.
My son.
He was wearing an orange shirt. And so he finds another black kid in an orange shirt and takes him to this wine tasting, which, I mean, why wouldn't you bring your small
Well, the girl
child
wanted to go on a wine tasting.
Wine tasting with the next hot chick, and he's the wrong kid. He has kidnapped someone else's kid. And I mean, the racism that he includes throughout this whole movie, including, like, he doesn't remember their names. Their names shift over the course of time. I did laugh when he started calling Ottawa, which is Canada's capital, for anyone who didn't know that. Fun fact. And, like, so the fact that it was just like, oh, he's another black kid in an orange shirt, like, that's how I can identify that it's my kid. I knew he had some kind of orange on. Oh my gosh.
I think he says too, like, these two black kids look the same. Like, I think he actually says it out loud. And I'm like, oh yeah. But that to me was like, oh, this idea of adopted children being sort of interchangeable. And
we've talked before on the pod about white adoptive parents being ill-equipped to raise black children, and the racial biases that are baked into these places where we live in the US and Canada, and having to really do a lot of work, adoptive parents needing to do a lot of work that oftentimes they don't necessarily do before bringing a child in. And in addition to this interchangeability that you just talked about, Kristal, the line with Adwa about, him going to sleeping with Pauly's girlfriends, it to me was a poke at this very racist idea that, the over-sexualization of black men, black men just wanting to sleep with all the women all the time. And then with Sumila, he actually says to Sumila at one time, because they're talking about golf, and he says, this is the age that Tiger started. And this idea that the only frame of reference he would have for a role model as a black person is Tiger Woods. That's it. That's who we know Tiger Woods, which reminds me of we had a similar conversation when we talked about the Sex and the City movie as, Serena Williams being the poster example, who again, like, of course, Tiger Woods and Serena Williams are like the best of the best at what they do, but like that's your only frame of reference as a role model for your kid is Tiger Woods. So I thought like those like one-liner jokes in there, I thought were doing a lot of work as far as commentary that I thought was really, really good.
Dare I say that Pauly Shore would be a more informed adoptive parent than many adoptive parents out there. Not as the person that he plays in this mockumentary, but like in real life, for him to be able to have the level of awareness that he has in order to make this mockumentary so brilliantly, dare I say that he might have a level of awareness that many adoptive parents may not even possess.
Well, I would agree with that statement, Kristal, because first of all, Pauly Shore has not adopted any children. Like real life Pauly Shore does not have any adopted children. I think the people that have this level of awareness that you are talking about, Kristal, don't adopt.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
But then why did he put at the very end, like this clip about there's all these millions of orphans, and he lists off from which country, and like adoption's not a joke. It's like, you almost.
Do you want to talk about that now?
No, I just,
well, let's talk about that now real quick. Because I didn't take it as he was like, oh, there's all these orphans, go adopt. But maybe I didn't read it right. I thought it was like, let's honor the fact that there are orphans out there. And that was kind of where it stopped for me. But maybe that's because my brain doesn't go to that place of, okay, now let's rescue them.
Well, he says adoption is no laughing matter. And then we have the statistics. And I didn't write them down, but it's, this many million in this country and this many million in the continent of Africa. And then I think it was 514,000 in the United States. So it was like this huge numbers, and then a smaller number in the U.S. And I don't know. You must have thoughts on this, Sullivan.
I do have thoughts on this. I think I took that as a couple of things. One is him acknowledging again that adoption isn't a laughing matter, as you said, Kristal, which in fact when he did publicity for this film when it came out, which by the way, it is super hard to find his publicity about this film because like the film disappeared and most of the publicity disappeared also. Like you get like the 404 not found.
There's a reason it's up for free on YouTube right now.
Yeah, you can watch it for free on YouTube. But I did find one interview that he did with Huffington Post at the time, and he talks about as a comedian and a writer and an actor and a director that he enjoys looking for the line between what's real and what's not real, and also that he said, at the end of the day, to me, the best comics talk about the things you're not supposed to talk about and make light of the things that aren't light. Adoption is not a funny subject, but if you can make light of it and have people smile about it and make fun of it a little, I think it's kind of cool to bring a lightness to a dark subject. Now, I think what he was referring to when he said a dark subject, I don't think that's the same thing that we are referring to when we talk about adoption as being heavy. I think that despite all of these like really funny lines that we've been talking about in this like sense that he had, I think he was drawing on his expertise as a person in the celebrity world and hearing how celebrities talk about adoptees. But I think he's ignorant about the adoption industry. And I think this statistic at the end shows it because he's talking again about orphans, which as we've talked about before, like those numbers, those kids aren't actually orphans. And also, by the way, he has UN statistics up there. And we'll put this in the show notes, but the UN follows, there's the UN Conference on the Rights of the Child, which all of these countries have signed on to, that really do center a child's right to be connected to their culture, their country, their community, their language. And in fact, it's the reliance and the signing on to the UN, this document, is why you have started to see all of these countries shutting down their international adoption programs, because they have signed on to this with the UN and can no longer run things the way they used to run them. By the way, the US hasn't signed on to it. But I think this like last screen with all these adoption statistics are him saying, okay, I should at least acknowledge somewhere that like adoption is serious. And I think when he thinks adoption is serious, he's talking about orphans. Orphans are serious. He's not talking about the adoption industry as it actually exists. I think he missed the boat on that. I think it wasn't part of the like shoestring budget he was working on and, what he storyboarded in his hotel room.
Agreed. Let's go back to Pauly's third option to adopt, who is Faith, the first girl. And he says of the two boys, they're so great, I might have to adopt 2 kids. So, okay, so let's see how Faith stacks up. When he puts his hand on Faith, this was my cringiest, most uncomfortable moment. I was like, do not send this young girl with this creep. Like, that's what I felt. And I was like, no, thank you. It wasn't funny. That was just like, I'm grossed out.
Well, and he makes fun of her hair also. Which, again, I took very much in this world that we're talking about, like this mockumentary world that we're talking about. We see him at his comedy set because he adopts Faith and then he leaves her at his hotel room because he's got stuff to do. And as part of, we see just a little teeny clip of his comedy set. And in his comedy set, he talks about adopting kids, and he talks about like the kids will like grow up and rob you. Like you have to be careful because adopting kids will like grow up and rob you. And sure enough, he goes back to his hotel room, and Faith, that little fucker, she's robbed him.
She took everything, even his condoms. Which then was the ultimate cock block for him, because he brought the 2 ladies back and they would not do the deed without protection.
Wah, wah, wah.
So dumb. So dumb.
Poor Pauly. So Pauly goes back to the adoption agency. He's now test driven the 3 kids, and he goes back to the adoption agency. And one by one, the director calls the kids in, except for Faith, because like she's run away and we still can't find her. We don't know where she is. She's disappeared. But the 2 boys, Sumila and Adwa, calls them in and asks, "Do you want to go home with him?" And they're like, "No,
no."
To which he says, "Then you know what? Africa's not the only place to adopt babies." And so we last see him in Cambodia, which of course is another poke at Angelina Jolie, who adopted a child from Cambodia, in addition to Africa. And that's when we see the stats at the end, which I think I was talking about the UN. The stats at the end are actually UNICEF. They're actually UNICEF stats.
So there's a couple lines. The adoption director says, "You should be in jail." I agree. At one point, Pauly's like, "It's like speed dating. It's speed adopting." And then he says, "It's like buying a pair of shoes, a week later, you wish you got Adidas instead of Nike." Like, he has some great lines about, like, I loved those, certainly. Yeah. Kristal, you were going to say something.
I was just going to say, when he goes to Cambodia, there's a scene where he's holding this little child and she's crying and wanting desperately to get out of his arms. And I think we see this actually through the entire film. Little children, where he's trying to grab for them or entice them to come with him. And they have this natural instinct to hold and cling to their mothers or their family members or the people that they know. And that was not lost on me. I saw that. And I've experienced that with my own babies, you know, them just being in the arms of somebody that's not familiar to them. And then they are reaching with their arms stretched out because they just want to be where they feel the safest. And Pauly Shore is not that for them.
Well, and to your point, at Pauly Shore as the adoptive father here, either not noticing or not caring, or kind of like, I'm going to muscle it out, right? Like, if I hold the kid tighter. And I think we see that on social media, certainly, because adoptive parents post all this stuff. It's hard to watch.
You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the adoptee representation we do have in this mockumentary, because lucky for Pauly, this faith healer he's been going to for advice, an older Black woman, at the end he goes back to her. He sees her in the beginning, and at the end he goes back to her, and she's like, you know, I have a daughter that you can meet. And so Pauly gets to meet his next hot chick, and she's adopted a white daughter. And so Pauly goes on a date with an adoptee who's a hot chick. So there's our adoptee representation.
Is there anything else, or should Kristal give an award?
Please, Kristal, please give us an award.
All right. Today's award goes to the professional boundary buster himself, Pauly Shore, who treats personal space like a polite suggestion, whose mother clearly never taught him to keep his hands to himself. Pauly receives this award for his unrelenting familiarity with strangers, for acts of bravery in the face of clear, visible discomfort, and for giving gentle love bites to the head of a man he only just met. I'm proud to present the Golden Bubble Popper Award to Pauly Shore for his weird demonstrative performance. Now, for the love of God, please take a step back.
Oh, I can't believe Pauly Shore is getting the first Golden Bubble Pop Award.
It was meant to be.
No, I didn't see that coming either.
All right, listeners, viewers, and pop stars, we would love to hear from you. What award would you give to the film Adopted, or to the characters of the film? Leave your comments for us on Instagram or YouTube.
This YouTube, by the way, the stats of nobody has watched this film since 2009. It's gotten 3 views, the 3 of us, and suddenly it's gonna spike. And Pauly Shore's not gonna know what to do with himself.
Pauly, when you watch this, please leave in the comments your acceptance speech for the award you were just given.
Yes.
Okay. Adopt and Pop is podcast journalist Haley Radke,
filmmaker Kristal Parke,
and cultural critic Sullivan Summer. In researching this episode, we relied on Dan Persons for the Huffington Post, Pauly Shore on Adopted.
If you like what we do, drop us a rating on your podcast app, find and follow us on Instagram and TikTok, and let us know what you want us to cover in future episodes.
Join us next week for just such a listener suggestion on Adoption Pop.